Welcome back to the Financial Symmetry Show. We have a familiar face back with us this week. Mr. Mike Eklund is here, and I am Chad Smith. You're two of your co-hosts throughout our almost 150 episode history here. So we are knocking on the door. I think this is 146 that we're tackling today. And I like episodes like this. So it's milestones to remember, these special moments in life that you encounter, and the financial phase of your life. There's a lot of these, but I was going to back up and first talk about maybe some of those dates in life that you think about and you're anticipating it, and you can look back potentially and think about those, or it may be something in the future. I was telling Mike before we started here, there's a little box of cards you can buy called Table Topics. And it's an interesting way to start conversations with your family or friends and just get into topics you might not normally discuss. And one of the questions we got last week in this game that we played was, if there's any age you could go back in history for to be there, or an age in the future, which one would you pick? So Mike, I'm going to throw that question to you first. What would you pick?
I'd probably say somewhere between 25 to 30. I can't pick an exact age or date, but that kind of age was kind of a fun time period, I would say. So that would I'd go back to. In terms of the future, I don't know. I mean, my wife and I have our 20th wedding anniversary next year, and we're planning on a vacation. I'd probably go back to when that vacation is, just the two of us and no kids. So that would be my dates. What about yourself, Chad?
You know she's listening. That's why you
said that, right? Of course she is.
It's a good one. I always remembered that anticipation of wanting to drive. I felt like that was I just could not, I was counting down the days, right? To be able, I could get out in my car and go somewhere on my own. So that was obviously one of the most important in the past. And then, in the future, just tomorrow, right? Yeah. I'm looking forward to, I do actually look forward to the next day and my life right now, because doing the job we do, we never know what's going to come next, right? And it's very interesting. We get to see a lot of different situations. And so some we talk about here, and that's what we're doing today. We're going to talk about these ages that we need to be aware of. So let's jump in. And Mike, I'm going to throw the first one. We're going to alternate through these, from throwing the first one to you, because you have the most experience here on when children are born. What are some things you need to think about when they're born, the very first age?
Yeah, that is the first one on the list. And at birth, you have the option to open a 529 account with the child's name as the beneficiary. So that can happen once they're born. They have a social security number. And then you also can open what's called a UTMA or UGMA account, which is typically account for minors. So those options are available when the child is a day old.
And then the next one here, and this one kind of made me pause for a second, because it's age 13. And it's when a child no longer is eligible for the Child Independent Care Credit. And I guess that technically is for summer camps, right? Because I started thinking really age 5 and 6, they're aging out of the expensive daycare times, right?
Yep.
But there are some summer camps and things that happen through elementary school and middle school that you might be able to use as well for that Child Independent Care Credit.
Yeah, I mean, it's after school care. If the child's not in elementary school yet, there's the any kind of care, daycare, things like that before before school starts. But that up until, through age 12 is available, and you get, for what you spend, there's we'll get into the tax details, but you potentially get a credit on your tax return to kind of offset those costs for, care for the child.
And then we're moving at that next stage into 18, right? And along with being able to vote, there's some pretty important things happening here on the financial front.
Yeah, this is where it starts getting interesting. So if you are listening to this and you have kids and they are 17 or younger, that's a good thing. So you'll still be eligible for the child tax credit if your income's not too high. But that's approximately $2,000 per child. You may have been receiving monthly checks the last few months as they've been paying those in advance so far this year. But that's up until through age 17 is available. Obviously at age 18 it is not. And then the other thing is in some states, and we'll talk about North Carolina in a second, if you open a UGMA or UTMA account when they were just born, they will be terminated, so that money will go in their name at that time.
Right, and that age is 21 in North Carolina. So
that is correct.
Another age. You can go out and buy your first drink legally, and you can also take on ownership of any account that your parent or grandparent or others might have saved for you in a Uniform Trust to Minors Act. account, a UTMA account. So something to, I guess, maybe some kids would jump for joy. Maybe some parents would say, oh man, I don't know if I should have done that or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's keeping in mind. If they have a UTMA account, you funded a lot of money in there, keep in mind at 21, that's theirs. They can do whatever they want with. So, if you're not sure that's the right approach, talk to a financial planner, can talk about different strategies to, limit the timing of when the kids would have access to the money.
I'd like to think most of our listeners are doing parenting right, and they're going to be very
Yes.
happy about this if they've done this for their children.
Well, the child will be well prepared financially, or understand how to manage their own money, or be smart enough to hire someone like Financial Symmetry to do that for them as well.
I see what you did there. So the next age we're moving into is Mike's magic area that he talked about, right? The 25 to 28, I think is what you said.
25 to 30. I mean, it's all good times at around that age.
So that age is 26. And this is when an adult child loses their parents' health insurance coverage under the Affordable Care Act, right? Because they can stay on their parents' health plan through, and that's really established likely to get them all the way through college, right? And maybe after that a little bit, or grad school if they're doing that. And then ideally at that time, they will be off on their own, established in a job, and they can look to get their own health insurance at that point.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, that kind of age from post-college to kind of really not have their feet set yet. It's a chance to kind of, for the parents, still provide the healthcare coverage, which is obviously so important. But at 26, they'll need to kind of figure things out on their own, which gives them hopefully a few years after college finishes.
So those are the important ages that you have in the first kind of area of life. And one, actually that we'll focus on sometimes too, that we didn't mention here, is a healthcare power of attorney for a child, right? And that's in that age range of 18 to 21, somewhere in there. You might think about different states have different forms that you could do if you don't have official estate documents for your child yet, but something you could look at for at least the healthcare decisions, that if something were to happen to them, you could make the decisions for them as a parent, if that's how you would like to have it structured. So then we move into an area where, there's a little bit of a gap. And Mike and I joked there that, there's plenty of ages through there. You may have a midlife crisis from age 26 to the retirement years. But just before retirement, and over the hill used to be age 40, right? But I would argue now it's probably moved to age 50 for most people.
I would, yes. I hope so, because I'm 44 today. So I hope so. It's moved to 50, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those occasions that we'll talk to our clients and remind them of that magical age of 50, what they can do at that age.
Yes, the magic age of 50, the milestone that happens there is you can contribute more to your 401k and IRA accounts. So many don't get that excited about it, but the reality is currently in 2021, you can contribute an extra $6,500 to 401k accounts and an extra $1,000 to either a regular IRA or Roth IRA account. And the key thing to remember there, people always seem to forget that it doesn't matter when the birthday is. So if your birthday is December 28th of the year or January 2nd, you still get the full 6,500 or 1,000. So that's kind of an important age. I think a lot of people kind of, it's not something you think about every day of, hey, I know I can contribute more to my retirement account. But if you have the ability, financial means, and you want the tax savings, especially for 401k, I think it makes a lot of sense.
So a good thing to keep an eye on there and make sure you have in your calendars whenever you turn 50 that you want to take advantage of that and increase your tax favored savings in your retirement accounts. And then moving 5 years later, you hit that 55 age. And for some, this can be on two fronts a nice thing, right? If you're saving in your health savings account, your HSA, you actually get a catch-up contribution that starts in that account specifically. An extra $1,000 you can do at age 55 currently a year. So another, again, rewarding you for the wisdom you've gained through the years or helping you because you've maybe not saved enough up to that point, and they're allowing you to put a little bit more in. That's why they call it a catch-up contribution. So you want to look out for that. And then the other option here potentially is some plans, some 401k plans, 457s, 403bs, allow for a penalty-free withdrawal from your retirement accounts, right? It's still going to be taxable to you, but up until 59 and a half, there's an age, right, that we'll talk about next. Generally, there's a penalty, a 10% penalty. But this 55 age, some plans allow you, particularly if you're still or if you're separated from service in those plans. So just something to look into the plan documents to see if that's an option for you. So another nice access to money, right? Particularly for those early retirees, because you start getting into some pretty specific and complex rules if you're retiring early and you're trying to access money out of your retirement accounts before age 55. That's where we've talked about in some episodes before the 72T rule. And, there's some really specific rules you got to follow to keep your contributions happening every year at the same rate until you reach age 60, basically. So just something to watch for there. And if you have that option, you might want to look into it and see if you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, Chad, that's a great summary for those kind of in their mid 50s and want to retire sooner. And they're always worried about, well, I can't have to wait till I'm 59 and a half because all my money's in retirement accounts and I don't want to pay the 10% penalty. It's a way, if your 401k allows it, a way to withdraw funds without the 10% penalty between 55 to our next age, which is 59 and a half. 59 and a half is typically known as the age where you can withdraw money from retirement accounts, primarily IRAs, without paying the 10% early distribution penalties. So how that works is if you're 58 and you withdraw 10,000 from an IRA, you typically would have to pay a 10% penalty on that withdrawal. But if you're age 59 and a half or older, then that penalty no longer is incurred. So for a lot of folks, they kind of look at that as the age they're trying to get to with work before they have to before they can start potentially considering retirement.
Yeah. And another thing at 59 and a half, we'll see sometimes is the ability to roll over a portion of your 401k while you're still working. So that is one to think about in some situations. If your 401k doesn't offer the investment options that you're looking for, some plans will allow you that flexibility when you reach 59 and a half. So that can be a nice option as well.
Yep. No, I agree.
And then a small one here small in that maybe not as many people take advantage of this or even it's applicable to, but at age 60, just 6 months later, you're eligible to claim Social Security survivor benefits as a widow or a widower. So it's early, it'd be early and it's at a lower amount, but again, it's another age to keep in mind. If you're in that specific situation, it's something you want to investigate to see. Of course, obviously you hope to never be in that situation. Yep. As a young survivor. 60 is young to me now, right? Is it to you?
Oh, it still is. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. At one point in my life that seemed older, right? But now we're moving
we're getting up there. So we're getting closer and it doesn't seem that old anymore, but
that's right.
No, I agree. I think, that the whole Social Security discussion, the next, number of ages coming up here will be, linked to Social Security or Medicare. This is a great time to make sure you're working with a professional, making sure you're right to make the smart decisions. Because, things like timing and claiming Social Security, Medicare, those are decisions that will impact you for the rest of your life. So at 62 is the next age, and that's when you're eligible to claim your own retirement benefits. That is the earliest age, 62, outside, as Chad mentioned, the survivor benefits. That is also, according to JP Morgan, the average age people retire. I did not know that, but 62 is the average age. So that kind of is a big year in terms of you can now claim Social Security benefits, which I think about half do at 62. We don't typically recommend it with our clients, but occasionally we do. And then obviously you have between 62 and 70, as Chad will get into here as we go through the different ages during your 60s.
Yeah. And, the numbers have come down of the percentage of people that are starting Social Security at 62, but it's still, a higher number than you might think. So, in I think 2018, the study from, the data from Social Security Administration, 31% of women and 27% of men took Social Security at 62, but that was down from the year 2005 when almost 50% of both took Social Security at age 62. Now, life expectancy is getting longer, of course, so that helps some. But always interesting to think about those stats and what people are actually doing, right? And 65, of course, used to be the full retirement age for everyone, right? That was for the long time or longest period. Now 65 is the start of Medicare still for people. So that's something you want to, many times we're planning for our clients and we're looking at age they might retire at 60 and then they have 5 years there, where really some of the biggest fears people had were keeping them working, right? Because they were curious about health insurance and they were fearful that they wouldn't have affordable health insurance to retire until they reach Medicare. So an important date for many, and kind of a rite of passage that you're, moving on to Medicare and maybe more affordable healthcare at that point in time, depending on when you retire.
Yep. No, yeah, it's 65 is the age, but for many of you have reached that age, many months before then, you'll start getting inundated with information from, Medicare and what plan to sign up for. Also 65, as a side note, if you do have a healthcare savings account, unlike the retirement accounts, that's the age when you can start withdrawing the funds for non-medical reasons and avoid the penalty. So just a side note, if you do have an HSA and you don't have medical expenses, obviously you can keep holding that HSA, but that's the age where you don't have to incur that 10% penalty. And then moving down the list, in terms of Social Security, really the full retirement age, which is kind of the standard age, is somewhere ranges between ages 66 to 67, between kind of depending on when you were born. For example, if you're born 1960 or later, it's 67. If you're born, before 1954, it's 66, and then kind of between those ages or those years is your full retirement age. That's not to say you have to file for Social Security at full retirement age, but there are some benefits that occur at full retirement age that if you can wait that long, it's usually beneficial.
When we're getting into this area, the next area, it's related to that required amount that you're supposed to take from your IRA accounts. And many people actually still believe or think, that it is 70 and a half, because for many years, that's what the age was. But Mike will tackle that one next. And 70 and a half now is the age that you are eligible to make a qualified charitable distribution from your IRA accounts. So that's basically a contribution that you take out of your IRA and make directly to a charity. And then that income, that withdrawal, is not taxable to you because it went straight to a charity. So it can be a nice way, if you're charitably inclined, to handle some of those contributions if you haven't up to this point. And of course, we didn't talk about a donor advised fund because there's not necessarily an age related to that, but that's another topic that we've tackled in several episodes around the charity aspect. So we'll have a link to a post that we've done on donor advised funds, because that is related to that charitable aspect. But in particular, the qualified charitable distribution, a QCD, is something you can do at 70 and a half.
Yeah, as you mentioned, if you are charitably inclined, you have a relatively large IRA, it's a significant benefit, highly recommended. Definitely talk to an expert, find out the best approach for you, but it's better than pulling the money out and then donating to charity. It's better to send the money directly from the IRA, which is how you get the benefit of this QCD. The final age on our list is age 72, and that is the age of the required minimum distribution. That's when you have to start pulling money out. You're required by law to start pulling money out of those pre-tax retirement accounts. Obviously, this used to, as Chad alluded to, this age used to be 70 and a half, and it has changed recently to 72. And the exact amount you have to withdraw every year will be depending upon the balance in the account, as well as your age as well. So that is kind of the last milestone. Obviously, there's many more milestones, not only personally, but also financially as well along the path. But that's kind of the last one where there is kind of a set kind of rules in place, and that's 72.
Yes. And of course, if you're working with a financial advisor, they are likely reminding you about these ages or trying to hold you accountable to take advantage of these opportunities whenever you hit those ages. And just another reminder, if you haven't moved forward, I mean, obviously, we know there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers that listen to podcasts, and we hope that all this info we are providing for you is helpful. And if you like to do it on your own, that's wonderful. And you're able to spend the time that's required and actually get things done in the implementation. That's a great thing. And I'm glad that you have that initiative. But that we know there are many that don't have that. And that's why we also do these episodes to talk about the importance of an overall financial plan and bringing it all together so you can see different scenarios and assure that you're hitting these ages and taking advantage of these opportunities. Because we all know, and Mike, right now in life for both of us, with the kids' ages we have them, life gets busy and it's easy to miss things. Even for me, sometimes with just updating insurance or getting umbrella insurance. It's easy to kick that can down the road because it's just, you know, it's going to take time. So it can be helpful to have a partner walking alongside with you to help be a reminder to do these things. That's my progress principle, by the way.
No.
I didn't announce it beforehand.
No, I like it. I mean, it's yes. I think to summarize, it's, you know, even though life is busy, there's different milestones in terms of ages, but there's a lot of things from your financial life that need to be done on a regular basis, and to help you kind of reach your goals and dreams with your money. And if you don't have the time and energy and interest to do it on your own, that's a great time to reach out to a fee-only financial planner like Financial Symmetry. But if not, you know, we appreciate you listening to the podcast or video. And obviously reach out to us if you have any questions or ideas for future episodes.
And any other topics you have or are curious about, you can search the magnifying glass upper right-hand side of our website at financialsymmetry.com. And if you'd like to not miss the next episode, if this is your first episode you've listened to, you can hit subscribe in your favorite podcast player and or on the YouTube channel. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.